welcome to the Sugar Plum Robin Knitting Podcast. My name is Ray and I'm joining you from outdoors today in my garden because it's such a nice lovely day and I wanted to take advantage of it. So I hope that the sound is okay and you can't hear too much of the traffic. I live in Edinburgh in Scotland, which is Scotland's capital city. It's a small capital city, but it is a little busy, so you might hear some street noise from around and about. My garden's quite secluded and shut off, but you can still hear the noise from the street. So hopefully you can still hear me okay as well. I'm not very loud today. I've been a bit under the weather, as you'll know if you follow me on Instagram. So I'm also Sugar Plum Robin on Instagram. And if you follow me on there, you'll have seen that me and my whole family have been sick with COVID. It got us in the end and we've been quite poorly. So I've not been very well and I'm still a bit iffy, so apologies for that in advance. However, I have some knitting to talk about, some nice things, so hopefully that will be nice. I know that things in the world are even more than ever at the moment, so I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just going to talk about knitting because I think that's what you're here for, and we need a little bit of a break from how heavy and oppressive everything is. But I hope that wherever you are, you're doing okay and you're safe and keeping as well as possible. So if you are here for the first time, you're very welcome, and if you are here again after being here many other times, then welcome back. It's very lovely to see you. People who've been here before will know that I'm a writer, I'm a poet, and so I tend to start and end each podcast episode with a poem. And sometimes it's a poem by me, and sometimes it's a poem by somebody else, any kind, whatever sort of strikes my interest at that particular time. So this week I thought to keep it simple, I'm going to share two poems from the same book. So I'll have one to start the podcast and one to finish it. The book is a very lovely one. It's called The Remedies by Catherine Towers. It's a book, a collection of poems that are largely about nature and about plants, particularly plants that have been used as natural remedies. So I thought maybe I would read a couple of these poems. The first poem I'm going to read to you to open up today is called Agrimony. It is a remedy for mental torture that is kept hidden. All summer I cough up umpteen tiny yellow blooms. I can't help looking cheerful, but in my heart of hearts I'm troubled. If I could choose, I'd bear a single dark blue flower, heavy as a stone and bitter scented. That's a short poem from Catherine Towers. It's a lovely book. Okay, let's go into the knitting. So, what am I wearing? Well, if you've seen my last episode, you'll have seen this one. This is the half-torn pullover. This was a test knit that I did for Gribba DK. The pattern is now released and it was a lovely one, so if you're interested you can now find this pattern. Let me stand up so you can get a bit of a better look. Unfold it there. So yeah, this is an incredibly cozy, soft, lovely pullover and I wear it all the time. Honestly, I wear it all the time. It's so soft. So the details, it is knit in a yarn by Hobie. It's their Hobie Diablo multi in the colour Pastel Sky. So Hobie Diablo is a kind of mohair blend yarn, and the Diablo multi is like a thicker version of that. It's got multiple strands, I think 5 strands of the yarn held together, which allows for you to have kind of some subtle like tonal differences in the colours by having just one or two of the strands be a slightly different shade to the others. I'll try and see if I can hold this up. I don't know if you can see that very well, but it is a really pretty colour. This colour is called Pastel Sky, and it's a very soft blue but with some other colours in it. It's got a lot of depth to the colour, and it's very fuzzy, but it's incredibly soft. And I'm a little bit sensitive to mohair, but I wear it anyway because I like it. But I find that I'm not sensitive in any way to this. So the other stuff that it's mixed with, which is acrylic and something else, maybe polyamide, something else, must be enough that I can't really feel anything from the mohair. So this is a lovely fluffy, soft, very baggy, cozy jumper, and I can recommend it. It's a lovely pattern, and because the yarn is so thick, it knits up so quickly. I think I made this in something like 10 days. It was a very quick knit. So that's what I'm wearing. And I mentioned this in more detail in the other episodes where I was knitting it, but the yoke has this lace pattern, and it has some stitches that I hadn't done before, this pistachio stitch and a few others which I hadn't really come across before, and they weren't difficult, they're just sort of new to me, so that was quite fun and interesting to knit. So there are magpies nesting in the tree just behind this wall, and sometimes I get their little iridescent feathers coming through. Isn't that beautiful? It's not going to show it very well, but it's got the beautiful iridescent crow colours. Lovely being out in my garden. It's not often nice enough weather in Scotland to be out here. Okay, so let's move on. I've got my notes over here and my big box of things. Finished objects. I have a couple of finished objects. I know it's been a little while since I was here last, just with being ill and the kids being off school. They're okay. They're fine. They got ill, but they only a little ill, and they bounced back. I'm just still lingering along with being ill, but better every day. Better. So my first finished object is one I have had on the needles for a long time, nearly a year. And it is this. This is the chanterelle top, or I suppose it could be a sweater. You can make a long sleeve version. And this is by Kia, who has the podcast Kia's Bod. And this is a free pattern on her blog. It is so pretty. I'm not well enough to be trying this on right now, but what I will do is try and put in some pictures of me wearing it, because it fits like a dream. It really does. I'm really pleased with the fit of this. I think, like many knitters, when I first started knitting sweaters and pullovers and garments, I found it more difficult to get a good fit than I had when I was just making, hats and scarves or baby things. So I struggled a little with getting a good fit on pullovers that weren't just oversized. Things that were meant to be slightly more fitted, I hadn't got the knack of making them fit right to my body yet, but I feel like this is something I'm getting better with, and this pattern makes it really easy. It's an incredibly flattering fit, so it's an empire waist. This band here of colour work, it's the same number of stitches as the stripes above it, but usually when you knit colour work, your knitting will be ever so slightly tighter, so normally you would go up a needle size at that point in order to not have it pull in, but with this pattern you want it to pull in just ever so slightly to make this kind of empire waistline where it just pulls in under the bust slightly, and then there's this lace at the bottom which then flares out again. And as such, I think it's an incredibly flattering pattern, an incredibly flattering design. It's knit in the round, top down, it's got raglan increases, and one of the things that makes it so easy to fit is that Kia's pattern is more like a recipe than a traditional pattern. So she doesn't tell you how long to go for, she just says, until it fits you, and this is how big I made it. So I didn't really do a gauge swatch, I just cast on, worked from there, knit my way down until I felt it was right, and at the right point then I switched to this colourwork band, which is such a pretty little design, and from there into the lace. The same for the sleeves, so I modified the sleeves slightly. In Kia's version she has a really long section of this ribbing. This is a twisted ribbing, I kept it shorter because I knew that I was going to wear this as kind of a summery, springy top rather than like a pullover. So it's just got the shorter sleeves, and yeah, so the yarn is there's two different yarns. They're both fingering weight. There's the brownish one is Novita Venla. I think the colorway is something like hazel, but I'm not completely sure. I've forgotten. And then the bluish, sort of aquaish one with all the speckles is a hand-dyed yarn from Bird Street Yarns, which is their Hiddleston sock base. So I think it's a superwash sock base, and it is with a bit of nylon, and it's the colourway is called Satsuma in My Stocking, which was a Christmas colourway, the Christmas before this one. So I don't know if you can still get it. But it's got little specks of every kind of colour that you can imagine in, but especially this kind of hazily colour, which is why I chose this Novita Venla wool to go with it. And this pattern used less than 2 skeins. I still have, I'd say, more than half of the second skein left over of the Bird Street yarn. So it's very economical on yarn, which makes it lovely for those really special yarns. The Bird Street yarn was a bit of a treat to myself. It is wool, but because it's superwash wool, it is not very warm, which is perfect because it's a summer top. I didn't want it to be very warm, so it's very airy and light. And the only other pattern modification I did was that I added some short rows onto the back, just a little bit, to raise the back collar a bit. Kia's version has a row of little buttons sewn down, decorative buttons, where the join is between the rows. You can see, so where you would start a new round and like a new stripe, there's like a slight jog, and you can do jogless stripes, but I just didn't bother. So I'm not sure, I'm thinking I might sew some little buttons down like Kia did, but I'm enjoying having the time to think about that and think about what would be good buttons to choose and how to go about it. So I don't feel in a particular rush to get that done. I have quite a big button stash, some boxes of buttons which I can rummage through and look at and carefully decide. So yeah, this is my first finished object. Chanterelle. It took me a long time to knit, but that's not because it's a particularly difficult project or anything like that. It was just that I had lots of other things going on as well. And this is, I think, is actually my first finished adult 4-ply garment. So I'm used to knitting with slightly thicker yarn to make grown-up garments, and it took a while to get it done, and it was nice to have breaks periodically to go and work on other projects. But it's really lovely, and it's lovely and drapey, and I'm really pleased with it. So I'm delighted to have that finished. So that's my first finished object. And my second finished object is a pair of socks. Yes, I have actually finished a pair of socks, and if you've been watching for a while, you'll know that is a bit unusual for me, because I have a great tendency to knit one sock and then lose steam, and the same with mittens. So I have this embarrassingly large collection of single socks and mittens. But I actually finished a pair of socks, and I only just finished them in the last 2 days. I knit them really quickly. They literally just took me 2 days to knit, and here they are. And they are very precious, very, very sweet. Look how cute they are. So these are some Easter socks. I think the pattern is called Dancing Bunnies or something like that, or Bunny Love. I can't remember, but it's a free pattern from Drops Design. it is kind of a double knitting sport weighty kind of sock, so they're nice thick, like a slipper sock, and they have a number of different Easter patterns. So the yarn I used for these is a mix of sort of scraps that I had, mostly of Drops Charisma, which is the recommended yarn. See that they have this lovely heart on the heel as well. But the purple and yellow yarn is, I have it here somewhere. So I was at a poetry festival before I got ill, before I was ill with COVID. I was at a poetry festival in St Andrews, and I was doing an event there with another author whose book I'd edited, so we were doing like a discussion about his book. And on my way between the train station and the event, there was a little shop that sold all kinds of alpaca goods made out of alpaca wool. And they had a very small selection of yarn, of alpaca yarn as well. And I couldn't resist popping in and picking some up. I can't remember the name of it now, and the ball band isn't here in my bag. I can't remember, but I will put the name down in the description below. So I picked up a couple of these. It recommends a 4mm needle, so I would say a double knitting weight. But actually they're quite thin. They're not 4-ply, but maybe more of a sport weight. We got this purple and this yellow, and they're so pretty and they're so soft. This is baby alpaca wool. So I put a little of those in, but I tried not to use them at the heels and the toes where I knew a lot of wear would go into the socks. So these aren't sock yarn socks. They're not reinforced, and so they'll be liable to get holes. So they're definitely more of an around the house kind of keep your feet warm socks rather than something you'd put in boots. I swapped the colour work around, so the yellow and the purple are swapped, and I just think they're so precious. I couldn't stop knitting them, and I've not been very well, so I've not had much else that I've been able to do. I've been sat on a deck chair in my garden, chatting to the birds and knitting and trying to keep my kids occupied in the garden, doing lots of digging in sand and making a mess, and knitting these little socks. So these are going to be a gift for a little friend of mine. Much of my knitting is a gift for a little friend. And here, let me tell you a little bit about it. So I know some people, some knitters, like to make stuff mostly for themselves, and there is nothing wrong with that, and I think that's really cool. And in fact, it was my New Year's resolution last year to knit more for myself, because I tend not to, because my most joy is knitting for other people, and in fact my most joy is knitting for children. I love it. There's something that just it makes me feel warm inside to knit something lovely and give it to just a little person that I know, or sew something or anything. I just love it. I really love gift knitting, and I especially love making things for children. So many of my things are for children, and for a while I suppose I looked at like what lots of other knitting podcast people were making, and I thought, oh no, they're making mostly grown-up stuff for grown-ups and for themselves, and it's more sophisticated, and the things they make are very modern and cool, and I don't make that kind of stuff. I love to make like little old-fashioned fussy things for small children. But I've decided to just embrace it, because that's what makes my heart happy. I really love it. So these are for a little person of my acquaintance. Okay, so that's all of the finished objects for today, but I have a bunch of works in progress, of which I've picked out a couple to show you. So let me see. Let me move some of these. Yeah. Okay, so one of the first things, and I've spoken about this one before as well, I'm making a gift. It's a test knit, but it's also a gift for my daughter, whose 11th birthday is coming up in just a couple of weeks. And the testnet opened up for this pattern by, I wrote her name. Oh, it's Estabilis, Stuango, who is Ilaradibu. I'm not sure how you say it, but I'll try and put it on the screen or in the description below. Who designs really lovely things for children. And I've knitted a couple of her things before, and I love them all. And she's come up with this new design, and so I noticed that the deadline was in April, really close to my daughter's birthday, and I also thought it was a design that she would really like. So I volunteered to test knit. I'm test knitting the biggest size, which is 12-year-old size, and it is a unicorn pullover. So here is the front. It's still a work in progress, and it's a plain drop-shouldered pullover with this intarsia unicorn. Now this isn't blocked, so you have to forgive that the stitches are a little wobbly still. You can see none of the ends are woven in on the back. And I've not embroidered the eye on yet, so the eye is embroidered on at the end. But isn't that so precious? So this is the back, and the back is just plain. So my daughter has definitely reached that age where she's a little bit too cool for the cutesy hand knits that I would love to make her, and have made her in the past. But she loves unicorns, and she tends to only wear black at the moment. She wears a lot of black clothes at that kind of tween age where black is the very cool thing to wear. So I'm making it in this, I don't know if you can see, but it's actually a charcoal, kind of heathery charcoal yarn. This is Drops Charisma, very basic, very affordable wool. And the highlight colours, you can see there's a white, a blue, a pink, and this purple actually has sparkle in it. I don't know, it probably won't show up very well, but it has sparkle in it. So there's a sparkly unicorn horn. Yeah, so I've done the front and I've done the back, and I think the next thing that we do is attach the shoulders and then pick up stitches for the sleeves. So hopefully I can zoom through those sleeves really quickly and get them done, I think within a couple of weeks. Hopefully they'll be done. Plenty of time for her birthday. And yeah, so I've managed to keep it quite secret from her so far, mostly because she just sees me knitting all the time, and she can knit, she's quite a proficient knitter, but she's not that interested in knitting at this age. So I've been able to get away with just knitting around her and just keeping it mostly in my lap, bundled up, so she doesn't really see what I'm working on. She's not asked, so I'm pretty sure it's still a secret. So yeah, that's my first work in progress. It's going quickly. Drops Charisma is a double knitting weight yarn. I'm knitting this on 4mm needles. I'm knitting it on straight needles. It's the first thing I've knit on straight needles for a really long time, actually. I tend to use double circular needles even when I'm knitting back and forth, because it's easier on my wrists. But I just had some straight needles to hand, and so I just picked them up and went for it. And it's yeah, it's coming along grand. It's a lovely pattern. So hopefully it will be out in not too long, and so if you want to knit it, you can. So that's my first work in progress, and my second work in progress is another little gift knit for a little person. So I have a young nephew called Rory. In fact, I have two nephews called Rory. It's a popular name, but I have one, my sister's little boy, her first baby, and he is coming up on 1 year old in May. And I think this is quite common for a lot of people at the moment, with the kind of the way the world has been the last few years. I've only met my little nephew once in person and got to hold him and hug him, and I didn't get to see my sister at all while she was pregnant, and now she's going back to work soon, and it just feels like I've missed this really huge part of her life, and it sucks. It really sucks. She lives down in England, I live up here in Scotland, and I've not been able to see her. Travel is extra complicated because of my little boy Robin is disabled. He has autism and learning disabilities, and he hugely struggles with travel and change of routine, and I care for him 24/7 basically. So I can't travel without him very easily, and I can't travel with him very easily. So that also makes it a bit difficult. So that plus COVID has just meant that I've only seen her once in the last couple of years and only met baby Rory once. So I feel like I'm missing out on a bunch of stuff, and his birthday's coming up in May, so I thought I want to knit him something lovely. I have made him many things, but I thought I want to make him something really sweet and special. And so what I have, and I have brought this book out before a few times, this is my favourite knitting book, possibly of all the knitting books. One of my favourites anyway. It would be in the top 3. It is the Beatrix Potter knitting book by Pat Minchini. It is so adorable. So this knitting book just has very kind of old-fashioned, slightly retro patterns for children and adults, inspired by Beatrix Potter. And I love Beatrix Potter so much that my daughter Audrey is, her middle name is Beatrix. And it's lovely. And I just love an old-fashioned retro style knitted garment for children. I love old-fashioned retro stuff for anyone really, but especially for children. I just think for babies it's so sweet to put them in a really old-fashioned vintage thing. And I've especially felt with my sister. My sister was really close to my grandma, my nana, who passed away a few years ago. And my nana was a prolific knitter. She was one of the people who taught me to knit and inspired me to knit. And when her arthritis got too bad for her to knit anymore, she gave me all her old wool and books and patterns and needles to knit with. And I feel like I'm a custodian of a lot of that, of these things, these books and things that she passed on to me. And that if she was here, she would have wanted to make something for my sister's son. They were so close, and I just think she would have made something. So I feel like I have to make something from me and from her as well. So I'm making a little jumper, a little pullover for baby Rory from me and from my nana. And I'm making it from this book, and it's a delightfully old-fashioned little thing so far. I've only just started it, so I'm only a little way in. But if you know Beatrix Potter at all, you might know the tale of Tom Kitten, a naughty little kitten. And so this is a pullover based on the tale of Tom Kitten. So this is, I don't know if that will be backwards to you, but this is the beginning of the jumper. It says Tom Kitten, and it's in these lovely retro kind of colours, the white background, and then there's a brown and a kind of tan colour to make the tabby cat markings you can see just here, the tabby cat. So this is the very beginnings of my Tom Kitten pullover for little baby Rory for his first birthday, so he can be a little Tom Kitten. And this is coming along fine and quick. It's double knitting weight yarn. I'm just using acrylic because I know that my sister will not, she's going back to work soon and she's got a baby, and goodness knows she's not going to want to do anything with hand washing. She'll just want to chuck it in the washing machine. So I wanted it to be not something that was precious in terms of materials, especially because it's white as well. I'm making a white thing for a 1-year-old. I mean, it had to be something very washable. So yeah, Tom Kitten, and I love it so much. I'm enjoying it very, very much. It is so charming. It is knit flat in pieces, very, again, an old-fashioned construction. You knit the front, you knit the back, you knit each sleeve, and you seam everything together at the end. So well, that leads us quite nicely into some acquisitions, and I'm going to start with some book acquisitions, and then I've got some yarn acquisitions. So, leading on from how much I love this book, I love it so much. My friend, a good friend of mine, was she took my daughter is good friends with her daughter, and she took them both out for a play date at a board games cafe, which is just an amazing thing that exists, because our kids both love board games. And while they were playing board games, she noticed that the cafe had like a second-hand book section where you could buy second-hand books, or I think swap books and all sorts. And she noticed this book, which is the Beatrix Potter Needlepoint book, also from Pat Minchini. And so she picked it up for me, and I'm so pleased. This is another gorgeous book, and I have just been starting to do some embroidery and cross stitch, and so it was perfect timing. And maybe in one of my subsequent episodes I'll show you some of my embroidery that I've been working on, because I love it. But it just has these beautiful little things, and I think each one is so fussy and lovely, and the kind of thing that you would have in your like beautiful little cottage kitchen. I can't wait to make them for my friends. So this is a tea cozy that's done in cross stitch. I just love these beautiful, fussy, slightly over the top things. And there's also some knitting in here as well. I don't know if this one will show very well, but this is a little patchwork shawl here, pattern. And some lovely cushion covers. Here is again that blanket, that shawl, just here, can you see? And this floor runner, which I don't know if I would ever have the patience to make. Maybe one day. Oh, look at these. An upholstered chair cover. Oh, I just love it. I know it's a little cheesy, but I can make no apologies. This is exactly what I love. And look at this little cross stitch of a mouse. The needle of thread. The Tailor of Gloucester. So there's so many beautiful things, and there are several knitting patterns in here as well. Here's a pram blanket. And it's just a really lovely book. So that was one of my favourite acquisitions I've had recently. Look at these beautiful samplers. So the Beatrix Potter Needlepoint book, which is lovely. And my other acquisition that I got after that, so one of my small friends, or my daughter's little friends, loves, oh, sorry about that, somebody is mowing. One of my daughter's little friends loves Brambley Hedge very much, and Brambley Hedge is a series of children's books which I also love so much, by Jill Barklam, and they are beautifully illustrated stories about these tiny little mice who live in Brambley Hedge, and each of them has their own little house in a tree stump or in the bank, and there's all the characters, like little mouse called Primrose who wears a hat and a yellow dress, and there's Dusty Miller, and it's incredibly charming. So I found online this Brambley Hedge pattern book. This is actually a sewing pattern book where you can sew the tiny mice and their little outfits. All the little Brambley Hedge characters. Can you see there's Primrose with her yellow dress? I think is that Dusty? So there's beautiful instructions in here and details on how to make them and how to sew. Step-by-step instructions. I can't wait to make some of these. I just need to order some of the fur, so it has like suggested materials, and it's got some of this fake fur thing to make the mouse fur. Oh, it's going to be so much fun. So these are some of my book acquisitions. I love an old second-hand book, especially an old second-hand craft book. So moving on, because I think it's going to be a bit loud out here from now on. Finally, I had a birthday. It was my birthday just a few days ago. I was very ill with COVID, but around my birthday I thought it might be nice to treat myself to some very special yarn, and that is some yarn by Brooklyn Tweed. Brooklyn Tweed is yarn that I've heard really nice things about, but I've never actually had any of myself. I've never even seen it really, I don't think, anywhere, but I've always wanted to try it. The cost of it, it's not an affordable yarn by any means, or not for me, and the fact that you have to get it from really far away, and the environmental impact of getting things from really far away means it's not something that I would do regularly. I don't know if I would ever do it again, but I sort of treated myself to this, and I had a discount as well, so all in all it was sort of okay. So this is their tones yarn. Let me show you. I got a sweater's quantity. So this is the tones yarn. This is in the colour Goldfinch, and I wasn't sure about the colour. I wanted to get something special. I have a lot of neutrals, and I thought, well, I want to get something a little bit out of my comfort zone, and I love goldfinches, and this colour is gorgeous, and it's so summery, and I love it. So this is the undertone colour, and this here is the overtone colour, both in goldfinch. So if you don't know the tones yarn, what it is it's the same colour, the same dye, used on different base colours. So it's the same blend of wool. It is a you see, it just says woolen spun. Yeah, American Columbia wool, sourced, spun and dyed in the USA. So, but they have like a paler base, like a whitish and a greyish base, and they dye them both with the same colour, and you can see it makes this really different result with the same colour dye, but they're definitely, they go together. They're kind of, you can see the similarities. So I'm going to use these together in a pattern. I'm really excited about it, but so I'll keep you updated as to how that goes, but for now I'm very delighted with it. It is very sheepy. It's soft, but it feels rustic. It feels like wool. It's lovely. I'm really pleased with it, and I've been swatching and making little test pieces, and I have some ideas, but yeah, watch this space. So that is about the end of my knitting content that I have for you, and I am starting to feel tired again, so I'm going to need to go and lie down again and hopefully rest enough that I can kick this nasty illness away. But for now I'm going to finish up with reading you another final poem. I can find my book, it's in my basket. Okay. So another one by Catherine from the Remedies, as we had at the beginning. And this poem is called Chicory, a remedy for possessive or selfish love. No one loves as much as I the brazen heads of hawksbeard and oxtongue. Gorgeous familiars, I need your yellow yellow to prove the blue of my blue. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.